There comes a moment in every man's journey when the mask falls away. You're moving forward, building something meaningful, becoming stronger, more focused, more aligned with your purpose. And then you feel it. That subtle shift in the air. The conversations that stop when you enter the room. The smiles that don't quite reach the eyes. The friends who used to celebrate your wins now measure them with resentment. The coworkers who ask about your plans not out of curiosity but surveillance. You begin to notice the whispers, the twisted words, the stories about you that you never lived. People you once trusted now speak your name with venom when you're not there to defend it. And the most painful part is not the betrayal itself, but the realization that while you were busy growing, others were busy resenting you for it. This is the ancient wound that is cut through every generation. Envy, gossip, betrayal, the poison that seeps into the hearts of those who watch your rise and feel diminished by it. But here, in this exact moment of recognition, you stand at a crossroads. One path leads to bitterness, retaliation, and the exhausting game of defending yourself against shadows. The other leads to something the ancient Stoics discovered 2,000 years ago. A way to walk through fire without being burned. A way to face envy and betrayal without losing a single piece of your peace. The Stoics understood something profound about human nature that most people never grasp. They knew that envy is not really about you. When someone resents your success, gossips about your character, or works quietly against you in the shadows, they are revealing everything about their own internal landscape and nothing about yours. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled Rome while facing conspiracies and betrayals that would have destroyed lesser men, wrote in his private journals that when someone wrongs you, you should immediately ask yourself what conception of good and evil they must have to act this way. He wasn't making excuses for them. He was freeing himself from the prison of taking their actions personally. Because the moment you understand that their envy is born from their own sense of inadequacy, their gossip from their own emptiness, their backstabbing from their own fear, you stop giving them power over your emotional state. You see them clearly, not as enemies to be destroyed, but as suffering people acting out their internal chaos. And this clarity, this understanding, becomes your shield. Seneca, who knew betrayal intimately, who was exiled by one emperor and eventually forced to take his own life by another, left us wisdom forged in the furnace of genuine hardship. He wrote that envy is the ulcer of the soul. Think about that image. An ulcer. A wound that the envious person carries inside themselves, eating away at them from within. When someone envies your progress, they are not harming you. They are corroding themselves. Every moment they spend consumed by resentment toward your achievements is a moment stolen from their own potential growth. Every hour wasted crafting gossip about you is an hour they could have spent building something meaningful in their own life. Seneca understood that the envious are prisoners of their own making, trapped in a cell of comparison and bitterness while you remain free. This is why the Stoic does not take envy personally and does not seek revenge. Not because he is weak, but because he understands that the envious are already punishing themselves far more effectively than he ever could. The most powerful response to envy is to continue growing, to keep moving forward with such focus and purpose that their whispers fade into the background. Noise of your extraordinary life. Epictetus, who began his philosophical journey as a slave before becoming one of the most respected teachers in Rome, taught a principle that cuts through every fear about reputation and gossip. He said that no one can harm you without your consent. At first, this seems impossible. How can someone not harm you when they're spreading lies, damaging your reputation, or working against you behind your back? But Epictetus wasn't talking about external circumstances. He was talking about the only thing that actually matters: your character, your integrity, your inner world. Someone can lie about you, but they cannot make the lie true. Someone can gossip about you, but they cannot change who you actually are. Someone can try to sabotage your path, but they cannot touch the discipline and virtue you've cultivated within yourself. The Stoics believe that your character is the only thing that truly belongs to you. Everything else, your reputation, your position, your possessions, can be taken away. but your moral purpose, your commitment to virtue, your internal compass. These remain untouchable unless you surrender them yourself. This is why Marcus Aurelius could write that if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. The backstabber only wins when you abandon your principles to fight them on their level. There is a quiet strength in the Stoic approach to gossip that most people never discover. In a world obsessed with managing perception, defending reputation, and controlling narratives, the Stoic does something radical. He refuses to participate. Not out of cowardice, but out of profound wisdom. When you hear that someone has been speaking against you, every instinct screams for confrontation, for setting the record straight, for making sure everyone knows your side of the story. But the Stoic asks a different question. Does their opinion change the truth of who you are? Does defending yourself to those who have already chosen to believe lies serve any purpose beyond feeding your ego? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that if something can be borne, bear it and stop complaining. This wasn't about passive acceptance of injustice. It was about choosing your battles with wisdom. Some fights diminish you just by participating in them. Gossip is one of them. When you descend into the mud to wrestle with those who trade in rumors and lies, you emerge dirty regardless of who wins. The Stoic understands that his time, his energy, his mental peace are far too valuable to waste on the opinions of those who form judgments based on whispers in the dark. There is a practice the ancient Stoics employed that transforms how you experience betrayal and envy. They called it the view from above. When you feel the sting of someone's treachery, when you discover that a friend has been working against you, when the gossip reaches your ears and the anger rises in your chest, step back. Imagine yourself rising above the situation, seeing it from a higher perspective. From this vantage point, you see yourself, yes, but you also see the backstabber, trapped in their own insecurity. You see the gossip, desperately trying to feel important by tearing others down. You see the envious burning themselves out with resentment while you continue to grow. And from this elevated perspective, something shifts. The personal sting diminishes. You begin to see the whole drama as a small, predictable pattern of human behavior that has repeated itself throughout history. Nothing special, nothing unique. Just frightened people acting out their fear in the same tired ways they always have. Free to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. Free to maintain your course instead of being pulled off track by the chaos of others. Free to feel compassion for their suffering without letting it infect your peace. The Stoics discovered something that it's confirmation that you're doing something right. When you were small, invisible, unthreatening, no one envied you. Envy only appears when you begin to rise, when your light starts to shine brighter, when your progress becomes impossible to ignore. Seneca wrote that the man who is everywhere condemned has nothing to fear from judgment, but the man of virtue must expect to have many enemies. Think about what this means. Your virtue, your success, your growth. These things expose the mediocrity of those who have chosen comfort over challenge. And that exposure is painful for them. Your mere existence, living with discipline and purpose, becomes a mirror that reflects back their own wasted potential. This is why they gossip. This is why they backstab. Not because you've done anything to them, but because your progress reminds them of everything they're not doing. And once you understand this, their envy transforms from something that wounds you into something that informs you. It becomes a compass. When the envious begin to circle, you know you're on the right path. When the gossip intensifies, you know you're getting closer to something significant. When the backstabbers emerge, you know you've become someone worth undermining. And armed with this understanding, you don't slow down, you don't shrink, you don't dim your light to make them comfortable. You burn brighter. There is a profound dignity in silence that the Stoics mastered and the modern world has forgotten. We live in an age of constant defense, where every accusation demands a response. Where reputation management is considered essential, where silence is interpreted as guilt. But the Stoic knows something deeper. He knows that dignified silence in the face of gossip is not weakness. It is the ultimate display of strength. You refuse to defend yourself against every whisper, when you decline to engage with every rumor, when you let your actions speak while your mouth remains closed, you communicate something powerful. You communicate that the opinions of small minds do not dictate your sense of self. You demonstrate that you are not controlled by the approval or disapproval of others. You show that your peace is not conditional on everyone understanding you or liking you. Marcus Aurelius faced senators who plotted against him, generals who questioned him, and citizens who criticized him. And his response was not to defend himself constantly or engage in political warfare. His response was to govern with such consistent virtue that his character became his defense. This is the power of letting your life be your argument. When you respond to gossip with more gossip, you validate it as worthy of response. When you meet betrayal with revenge, you descend to the level of the betrayer. But when you face envy and backstabbing with calm, continued excellence, you rise above it entirely. Your silence becomes louder than any defense could be. Your dignity becomes more powerful than any retaliation. The Stoics taught that every challenge, including the challenge of envy and betrayal, is an opportunity to practice virtue. When someone gossips about you, you have the opportunity to practice self-control by not retaliating. When someone envies your success, you have the opportunity to practice humility by remembering that your achievements don't make you better than others. When someone backstabs you, you have the opportunity to practice wisdom by seeing their action as a reflection of their character, not a statement about your worth. Epictetus would tell his students that difficulties are what show men to be what they are. The easy times, when everyone supports you and celebrates you, those times don't reveal much. But when the envy comes, when the gossip spreads, when the betrayal cuts deep, that's when you discover what you're made of. That's when your philosophical training is tested. And the Stoic doesn't pray for the absence of these challenges. He prepares for them. He anticipates that envy will come because success attracts it. He expects that some people will gossip because that's what frightened people do. He knows that betrayal is possible because humans are imperfect and sometimes weak. Because he expects these things, he is not shocked when they arrive. He is ready. He has already decided how he will respond. Not with anger, not with revenge. Not by lowering himself to their level, but with the calm, unshakable virtue that defines the Stoic way. There is something you must understand about backstabbers that will free you from ever fearing them again. They are not strong. They are not clever. They are not winning. They operate in shadows because they cannot stand in the light. They whisper because their words cannot survive scrutiny. They work against you in secret because they lack the courage to face you directly. And this means something crucial. Their power over you is entirely dependent on your reaction. If you crumble, if you become bitter, if you abandon your principles to fight them in the dark, they win. But if you remain steady, if you continue building, if you refuse to let their poison infect your character, they are exposed as exactly what they are: weak, frightened, ineffective. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. This is not about being passive. This is about understanding that the highest form of victory is not defeating your enemies, but transcending the entire game they're playing. When you refuse to become what they are, when you maintain your integrity while they lose theirs, when you succeed while they're still gossiping, you don't just win, you make the battle irrelevant. And there is no greater defeat you can hand a backstabber than making their efforts meaningless by continuing to rise regardless of their schemes. The ancient Stoics lived in a world far more brutal than ours. They faced exile, execution, political betrayal, and social destruction. Yet they maintained an inner peace that most of us, with all our modern comforts and freedoms, cannot seem to find. How? Because they understood the fundamental truth that circumstances do not control your peace, your reactions do. When envy surrounds you, you can choose resentment or indifference. When gossip spreads, you can choose defense or dignity. When betrayal strikes, you can choose revenge or wisdom. The Stoic chooses the path that preserves his character every single time. Not because it feels good in the moment, but because he knows that his character is the only possession that matters. Seneca reminded his students that life is long enough, and we have been given enough time to accomplish the greatest things, if only we invest it well. Every moment you spend consumed by what others think, every hour wasted on anger toward those who envy you, every day lost to plotting revenge against backstabbers is time stolen from your purpose. The Stoic cannot afford this waste. He has too much to build, too much to learn, too much to become. And so, he trains himself to acknowledge the envy, note the gossip, recognize the betrayal, and then return immediately to his work. Not because he doesn't feel the sting, but because he refuses to let that sting dictate his direction. Here is the final truth that will set you free from the prison of caring what envious people think. You cannot control their opinion, but you can render their opinion irrelevant. Not through force, not through persuasion, but through the simple act of living so fully aligned with your values that their judgment slides off you like water off stone. When you know who you are, when you've done the work of building genuine character, when your self-worth comes from your own assessment of whether you're living according to your principles, the gossip of others becomes nothing more than noise. Interesting, perhaps, informative maybe, but not powerful. Not capable of shaking your foundation. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He wrote that if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. The backstabber has no power except what you give them. The envious person cannot diminish you except through your own acceptance of their narrative. The gossip cannot harm you unless you believe that the opinions of those who don't even know the full story somehow define your reality. And once you truly internalize this, once you feel it not just in your mind, but in your bones, you become untouchable. Not because nothing bad happens to you, but because nothing external controls your internal state. This is the freedom the Stoics promised. This is the peace they cultivated. This is the strength they offer you. So here's what you do when you discover the envy, when you hear the gossip, when you feel the knife of betrayal between your shoulder blades. You pause. You breathe. You remember that you are not your reputation. You are not other people's opinions. You are not the stories they tell about you in rooms you'll never enter. You are your choices. You are your actions. You are your character. And no one, no matter how envious, no matter how skilled at gossip, no matter how treacherous, can touch that unless you hand it to them. You return to your principles. You return to your work. You return to the person you're becoming. And you understand that their envy is simply confirmation that you're on the right path. Their gossip is simply noise that you don't need to respond to. Their betrayal is simply a revelation of their character, not a statement about yours. You walk forward with quiet strength, with unshakable dignity, the calm certainty that comes from knowing who you are and refusing to let anyone else define it for you. This is the Stoic way. Not to be unbothered by betrayal, but to be uncontrolled by it. Not to feel nothing when envious people work against you, but to feel it without letting it derail your purpose. Not to avoid pain, but to move through it with your character intact and your peace preserved. Because at the end of your life, when you look back on this moment, you won't remember the names of those who envied you or the specific lies they told. But you will remember whether you maintained your integrity. You will remember whether you let them make you smaller or whether you continued to grow despite them. You will remember whether you became bitter or whether you remained wise. And that memory, that knowing that you walked through fire without losing yourself, will be worth more than any vindication or revenge could ever be. This is how the Stoic handles envy, gossip, and backstabbers. Not by avoiding them, not by defeating them, but by transcending them entirely. By being so firmly rooted in virtue that no storm of pettiness can move him. By being so committed to his path that no distraction of envy can slow him. By being so secure in who he is that no opinion, no matter how widespread, can shake him. Walk this path. Build this strength. Become this person. And watch as the envy, the gossip, and the betrayal that once wounded you become nothing more than weather passing through your life while you remain unmoved, unbowed, and unbroken.